Hello world. So I was recently laid off from a big tech company and I have been working for 25 years in the tech industry. So that vlog I posted a week ago, that really blew up, didn't it? Um, I like to just take a moment to thank everyone for your kind words of encouragement, your support, your advice, and your suggestions. That means a lot to me. I also just want to acknowledge that it is a really hard time right now for laid off engineers and ex techies out there. I know that I'm one of the lucky ones in that I've had the time and the stability to be able to save and invest and prepare for my family. And I know that for a lot of laid off engineers out there, that is not the case just because, life happens. And especially for the junior engineers out there, I really feel for you guys because it's a super rough situation where you've been handed many factors that are entirely out of your control. And that is a really rough time right now. So with that said, I have more options to explore than many of my laid off colleagues. Whereas I'm in sort of a life pivot or a life journey, a lot of people in my situation is in total survival mode right now. So where do I go next? Well, I've explored three broad options and considered the pros and cons of each. The first option is to get back into the grind, meaning get another job in a big tech company. For me, this option only has one upside, and that's the bonkers levels of compensation involved. So right after my layoff, out of sheer inertia and force of habit, I actually started applying for those big tech positions. I sent out a ton of job applications and most of them was just pure silence. I didn't hear a thing back from them. There were a few that were just like automated rejections. I would get a rejection within 10 minutes of sending my application. Finally, after weeks of applying, I received a single screener by a real person. I passed that screener and had scheduled a technical assessment with an architect at that company. So via LinkedIn, I was able to see that my interviewer was an architect in his early 30s. So to prepare for this interview, I actually went to LeetCode and started practicing Java questions, right? This was a Java position. And about 20 minutes into me plugging away at these questions, I kind of paused and had a bit of a reflective moment. I remembered my interactions with a man. Let's call him Bob. The year was 2010, and I had just been promoted from a developer to an architect. Back then, I was really quite proud of myself. I had what I thought was a lot of knowledge, but in retrospect, maybe no wisdom at all. And at work, I was known for being a super hard interviewer. Bob was a man in his 50s. He had gray hair and gray eyes and a certain edginess about him. At the time, I took that edginess for arrogance and I sort of really laid into him with my questions. I grilled him on everything. I made Bob implement all the major design patterns in Java: factory, singleton, prototype. I gave him all of these questions on concurrency and multi-threading. I made him implement an LRU hash map from scratch. Bob handled it all with flying colors. This man knew the Java language like the back of his hand. He knew all the major frameworks: Struts, Spring, Juice. He knew Juice, and hardly anyone knew Juice at the time. So it turns out that Bob in his younger days had worked on the original Java language and Java virtual machine at Sun Microsystems, sometimes in the early 90s. He had removed that experience from his resume in order to appear more relevant and find a job. From his resume, I also saw that he hadn't worked for over a year at that time. So at the debrief meeting, I let everyone know of my opinion about Bob's OP level of skills. And around the table, pretty much everyone agreed that he was strong in Java. However, most others mentioned the edginess, mentioned that Bob seemed pushy or even aggressive. The hiring manager at the time kind of decisively concluded the decision. He mentioned that, hey, Bob seemed like a really strong candidate, but he may not be a good cultural fit for our organization. And it sort of made sense too, right? Bob seemed to be this really agitated guy in his 50s, and our company consists mostly of people in their 20s and early 30s. Now, in retrospect, at least to me, I don't think Bob was being pushy or aggressive. I think Bob was desperate. He was an aging engineer, a man who was trying really hard to just prove his worth and get a job. And now it feels like things have come full circle, and I've turned into Bob. Bob, if you're still out there, I want you to know that I respect you, man. I don't want to be you, but I respect you. So with this perspective in mind, I just can't bring myself to continue searching for a job at big tech. It seems to be all downsides to me, and the one upside isn't worth it for me. So my second option is to retire early. As I mentioned previously, we've been saving and investing and living below our means for almost 17 years now. And in that time, it allowed us to build up a significant cushion of assets, meaning I can do no paid work at all and still ensure a comfortable living for my family. This concept of FIRE, or financial independence, retire early, it gives me the advantage of time, the freedom of my time. And quite frankly, in the last couple of weeks, I've been using that time a lot to hang out with my family, my friends, and it will give me the ability to focus on my relationships, my health, my hobbies, and basically my life. So there is a lot to like about this retire early option. And because investments by their very nature compounds over time, I can in theory actually become richer over time for as long as this style of capitalism that we live in persists. So early retirement is an option that is really worth considering. In fact, one can say that it's my default option, right? Because I'm not working right now, so by default, I am retired early. Now, I see two key challenges with early retirement. The first challenge is that how sure are we that capitalism, this consumer capitalism that we have, will last? I believe that there is a non-zero chance of having a black swan event of some sort. Imagine all of this investment that big tech is pushing into AI. All this money, billions, trillions of dollars spent on data centers. Could it potentially cause another Great Depression and render our assets worthless? That's a possibility. What if, for example, all of these investments in AI pay off and we have a great depreciation in the value of cognitive labor? If that happens, could society change entirely? Could we somehow transform into a kind of techno-feudalism where we essentially all become serfs to our AI-empowered masters? There's a non-zero chance of that happening. In my mind, this type of black swan event calls for a backup plan, some form of active income that complements our passive income, just in case everything goes haywire. The second challenge that I see with early retirement is that most men, I believe most men, when their basic material needs are met, have this innate desire to find meaning in their lives. And the way that people find meaning in their lives is by building, creating, doing things that are meaningful. And so, yeah, I can take all the time I want to spend with my family and on my hobbies and playing, but there is this kind of drive to do something meaningful and fulfilling and that can improve things in the world. So that leads to option 3, which is to do meaningful work. I mean, I like to work within limits, right? But I want to do work that is fulfilling, that makes me feel like, hey, I'm actually making a difference. Now, this might mean taking a job with a company or a group of people if the cause of that work is significant enough. It could also mean working on my own stuff, building my own projects or frameworks or creating things on my own. Now, there's a downside to this option. It's not going to be easy to create things that others may value. I think I'm going to have to sort of change my mindset from being a doer to being more of like a founder or a business owner. But I really think this is an option that is worth pursuing for me. So net, my current headspace is thinking of pursuing a combination of option 2 and option 3. So kind of semi-retire, but try to work on meaningful things on the side. I'm going to throw a bunch of stuff on the wall and just see what sticks. So yeah, that's where I am in terms of my life pivot right now. If anyone has a morbid curiosity in this little journey of mine, feel free to subscribe to my channel and join me in this quest. Anyways, it was great chatting. Until next time, bye guys.